System, please take me away from this world. Understood. The application to leave the parallel dimension has been processed. The host has 5 days to say goodbye to family. Hearing the mechanical voice in her mind, Lydia Lane stiffened, her gaze falling upon the wedding photo. In the picture, the two of them were embracing, smiling with sweet affection. What a pity. Everything was just a mission, like a dream. 10 years ago, Lydia was brought to this parallel world by the system to capture the heart of the business prince of Seaview City. Over 10 years, they went from acquaintances to soulmates. She not only completed the mission, but also began to linger in this world. It was only because, in this world, there was someone who loved her the most. She couldn't bear to leave, not just because of love, but because she couldn't imagine how the person who loved her most would survive without her. No matter how tired he was after work, he would cook for her personally. The goodnight kiss every night was never missed. In his eyes, in his heart, there was only the person he loved. Because she was a traveler from another world, an accident occurred during her pregnancy, resulting in an ectopic pregnancy. He guarded her bedside, his eyes red. If having a child means risking your life, we won't have one. Our world only needs the two of us. When she was discharged, he canceled all his work to stay by her side. Outside, he was the swift and decisive CEO. At home, he was like a child who refused to grow up, always wanting to cling to her. He would wipe her body, sing to her, and his catchphrase was always, "Happy wife, happy life." But it was this very man, who supposedly loved her to the bone, who actually had a second home outside with another woman behind her back. He bought that woman a house in a seaside villa and met her day and night. He would even sneak away while she was asleep. The man she once thought she would die without had finally betrayed their marriage and betrayed his love. Realizing the truth, Lydia finally saw the light. She threw away the wedding photo and began to pack her things, preparing to leave. After making all preparations, Lydia called a courier. Soon, the courier arrived at the door. "Hello, please ship these items to this address, and tell the recipient that the promotional gift included is my husband." "Wifey, what gift?" Just as Lydia finished speaking, she saw Ethan Foster walking in hurriedly. He kissed Lydia lightly on the cheek. "Honey, did you miss me?" Seeing that Ethan didn't notice anything, Lydia breathed a sigh of relief. "MMH." She nodded slightly, giving a perfunctory response. He rubbed her head, his eyes full of doting affection. "Honey, I'm so sorry. There was an emergency at the company, so I'm late. Don't be unhappy, okay?" Lydia sneered internally. How could he tell lies so realistically? Sleeping in the same bed with him for 10 years, she had almost truly believed him. Unfortunately, he could no longer deceive her. He didn't have an emergency at the company. He probably went to keep Bella Banks company, right? Lowering her eyes, Lydia took a deep breath, her tone flat. Company matters are naturally the most important. I'm not that petty. As soon as he entered the door further, Ethan was shocked by the scene before him. The entire villa was empty. All the memories between the two of them were gone, especially the wedding photos. With a gloomy face, Ethan revealed a trace of imperceptible anger between his brows. "Lids, where are our wedding photos?" Lydia turned and sat on the sofa, looking at Ethan with no emotion in her eyes. "They got dirty. I sent them for dry cleaning." "Lids, I know you like things clean, but what if they ruin the photos?" Ethan acted somewhat agitated. "It doesn't matter, we can take new ones." "Take new ones?" She laughed at herself self-mockingly. They probably wouldn't have that chance anymore. At 6 in the evening, Ethan took Lydia's arm and walked towards the dining room. The Western dishes on the table were mostly Italian style. That was the dinner Ethan had specially prepared for Lydia. Although there were many servants at home, Ethan never neglected Lydia's dinner. For 10 years, rain or shine, he cooked personally. Those servants were even deprived of the qualification to prepare side dishes, just like always. Ethan pulled out the chair for Lydia very gentlemanly, kissed her cheek lightly, and then went around to sit opposite her. "Wifey, I prepared this specially for you. Soup to nourish your stomach and French cuisine to boost immunity. Your health isn't good. You should pay more attention to nutrition." Listening to the gentle and familiar words, Lydia couldn't muster any interest. Vaguely, she felt it carried a hint of irony. Ethan must have said these words to Bella Banks too, right? Since he was so affectionate, how could he share his love between two women at the same time? Late at night, the warm light in the bedroom was on. Just as Lydia lay down, Ethan walked over wrapped in a bath towel. He held Lydia tightly in his arms, whispering in her ear, "Honey, I'm tired." Lydia turned over, her back to Ethan. At this moment, urgent music rang from Ethan's phone. The hand holding Lydia's waist trembled slightly. Ethan quickly picked up the phone and walked out. Separated by a door, Ethan pressed the answer button, his tone somewhat impatient. "Why are you calling so late?" "Ethan, I'm so scared. The big villa you bought for me is too big. I'm scared being alone." "Stop it, it's not convenient." "Ethan, I know that in your heart no one compares to Lydia Lane, but I don't want too much. I don't want to fight for anything. I don't want a title. I only hope you have me in your heart." The sound of quiet sobbing made Ethan hesitate. "Ethan, please, I'm really scared." After a few seconds of silence, Ethan finally compromised. "All right, wait for me." Hanging up the phone, Ethan opened the door and glanced at Lydia, who was pretending to sleep. Turning around, the sound of footsteps drifted further and further away. That night, Ethan did not return. In the morning, Lydia woke up from her dream and saw the message sent by Ethan. "Honey, something came up at the company. I left first." Putting down the phone, Lydia didn't reply. Lydia couldn't be bothered to pay attention to such clumsy rhetoric. She didn't expose Ethan's lie. After all, she still had her own things to do. After leaving the house, Lydia went directly to a full-service funeral home. The staff member asked Lydia, "What is the name of the deceased and how old are they?" Lydia spoke without hesitation. "Lydia Lane, 28 years old, it is me." The staff member's eyes were full of disbelief. "Ma'am, you are so young, what illness do you have?" Lydia didn't answer her question, nor did she pay attention to her pitying look. She spoke plainly, "Please, on September 15th, take my body for cremation. Afterward, I don't need a grave, just scatter the ashes into the mountains." "Don't you need to notify your family?" The staff member was dumbfounded. Lydia gave a bitter smile. "I'm sorry, I have no family. My family is all dead." After the system took Lydia away from this world, her soul and body would be completely separated. Since the soul was gone, what was the use of keeping the decaying flesh? Did she still hope that the man who betrayed her would miss her? Coming out of the funeral service company, Lydia was preparing to go home, but unexpectedly saw Ethan holding Bella Banks, gently patting her back, whispering something in her ear. The movements of the two were very ambiguous. It looked like they were the family. Ethan Foster. Lydia didn't want to speak initially, but just as she was about to leave, she saw Ethan looking at her like a thief caught in the act. Hearing Lydia's voice, he pushed Bella Banks away and kept a distance from her. Lydia came to Ethan and looked up at him. "Didn't you have something to do at the company?" Her scrutinizing gaze fell on Ethan, and his eyes were obviously panicked. "Lids, don't misunderstand. On my way to the company, I saw Bella Banks crying here. Bella Banks held back the tears in her eyes, looking pitifully at Lydia. "Lydia, don't misunderstand. We really just met. It's all my fault, affecting Mr. Foster's work." After Bella finished speaking, a staff member from the funeral home walked over holding an urn. "Miss Banks, your pet dog's ashes have been processed. Please accept my condolences." Lydia looked at the ashes in Bella's hands. Yes, a loved one is gone. Naturally, one cries their heart out and needs comfort. Bella's face turned red, and she couldn't say a word for a long time. After storing the ashes, Ethan suggested eating together. Lydia didn't refuse. She just wanted to see how affectionate Ethan and Bella usually were. Along the way, no one spoke. Finally, it was Ethan who broke the awkwardness first. "Wifey, why did you come to the funeral home?" Lydia kept a cold face. "My friend's pet dog died. I came to handle it." Arriving at the restaurant, Ethan parked the car in the underground parking lot and protected Lydia all the way. Until they walked into the private room, he was either pouring tea or asking after her well-being. In the eyes of outsiders, he was simply the perfect family man. But at this moment, the door of the private room was suddenly pushed open from the outside. The manager in a black suit, leading several waiters holding various dishes, smiled brightly. "Mr. Foster, hello. This is your 100th visit to our establishment. On behalf of all the staff, I'd like to present you with a few dishes as a token of our appreciation. I wish you and your family a pleasant meal." The manager's polite words did not receive a response. Just as he was very confused, Lydia suddenly laughed. Probably because of Lydia's laughter, Ethan snapped back to reality. He was instantly furious and shouted at the manager, "What nonsense are you talking about? When have I ever come here with my family? I always bring my clients." The manager froze. "But, get out." Ethan's eyes were full of warning and dissatisfaction. Watching the manager leave dejectedly, Ethan quickly explained to Lydia, "Honey, really don't misunderstand. I just brought clients here a few times." As he spoke, his eyes stole a glance at Bella Banks. There were many things in that look: concealment, embarrassment, uneasiness. At this moment, Lydia really wished she was a fool so she wouldn't see through Ethan's lies and her heart wouldn't hurt so much. Bella Banks watched Ethan explaining everything to Lydia. Jealous anger filled her eyes. Her nails dug deep into her palms as she squeezed out an ugly smile. "Lydia, please don't overthink it. I did come with Mr. Foster a few times, but we always brought clients with us. We came here to discuss business." Looking at the two people in front of her, irony rose in the depths of Lydia's eyes. Just as they walked into the hotel, the waiters were respectful, and even the manager brought people to send dishes. Saying they rarely came, who would believe it? But this didn't seem so important to Lydia anymore. She was leaving this world soon. She was even ready to package her husband as a gift to give away. Would she still care about past betrayals? "Sit down and eat," Lydia sneered, then lowered her eyes and said. Sitting at the dining table, Lydia wanted to let this matter go. But the next second, her brows furrowed tightly. The table was full of dishes. All of them were the spicy cuisine she hated the most. Following Lydia's gaze, Ethan also looked at those dishes. He knew Lydia had a bad stomach and couldn't eat spicy food, so he took Lydia's hand. "Honey, these dishes aren't suitable for you. Whatever you want to eat, hubby will cook for you at home." "No need." Lydia shook her head. The meal ended hastily. In front of the hotel, Ethan held Lydia's hand, letting her lean gently in his arms. "Wifey, does your stomach feel uncomfortable?" Lydia shook her head. "I'm okay." This scene was seen by passing people, who all showed envious expressions. "CEO Foster treats his wife so well. Yeah, I so envy their love. If I can find a husband like CEO Foster in the future, I will definitely die of happiness in this life." Listening to the envious words around her, Lydia gave a self-mocking laugh. Were they really that happy? It probably wasn't as simple as it looked on the surface, right? At this moment, the urgent sound of a car horn rang out. Beep beep. A speeding car seemed to have lost its brakes and rushed fiercely towards Lydia. Scree! Long tire tracks were drawn on the ground. At the critical moment, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in Lydia's ear. "Bella, watch out, are you okay?" In his panic, Ethan rushed towards Bella Banks. His eyes were full of worry, his crimson rims filled with tears, as if he had lost his most beloved toy, and he immediately pulled Bella into his arms. Opening her eyes again, Lydia didn't know how long had passed. She only saw a nurse standing by her side, smiling and saying, "Miss Lane, you are so lucky. While you were in a coma, CEO Foster stayed with you the whole time, never leaving your side. For your health and safety, he specifically went to the mountain sanctuary. It is said that he prayed with a pilgrimage, kneeling every 3 steps. It even went viral on social media." After speaking, the nurse found a video and played it for Lydia. In the video, Ethan was followed by bodyguards. The group was mighty, kneeling every step, walking towards the highest point of the sanctuary. The ancient tree for blessings was hung full of wishing plaques. As they swayed gently in the wind, they made dull, crisp sounds. Lydia, who should have been touched, felt no ripples in her heart after watching the video. If Ethan really loved her that much, why did he shout Bella Banks' name when the out-of-control car crashed towards her and hold Bella in his arms? The ward door was pushed open fiercely. Ethan's eyes were red. "Honey, you're finally awake." The moment he held her in his arms, Ethan's tears fell like rain. Feeling Ethan's care, Lydia's body was stiff, unable to raise any emotion. She only felt numb. If she died, wouldn't it be exactly what Ethan wanted? That way he could be with Bella Banks openly and honestly. Ethan held Lydia and cried for a long time, but she didn't shed a single tear. The moment he let go of Lydia, Ethan's eyes were full of surprise. Perhaps because he thought of something, Ethan grabbed Lydia's shoulders, his nose red as he explained, "Honey, I wanted to save you at that time. It's just that Bella was very close to me. I was really panicked at the time, I was terrified." Maybe he was really scared, he really panicked. But at the critical moment, the first person he thought of in his mind was Bella Banks. not her. 10 years of feelings couldn't match a moment of passion. Lydia found it terrifying just thinking about it. Closing her eyes, Lydia didn't want to listen to Ethan's clumsy lies anymore. Ideally, saying those lies out loud, even he would find them ridiculous. Seeing Lydia's reaction, Ethan was stunned at first, then stood up and backed out. "Honey, you rest well." After this incident, whether out of guilt or feeling he owed her, Ethan stayed by Lydia's side for the next few days. Not seeing Ethan, Bella Banks panicked instantly. Because she was afraid of losing him, Bella actually made an excessive move. She began to send photos and videos to Lydia incessantly. The photos had Ethan's mark on them. In the video, there was Ethan's confession to her. Hearing Ethan call another woman honey with her own ears, Lydia's heart felt an inexplicable stinging pain. She thought she had let go of this man. She thought she wouldn't shed tears for this man again. But when all the truth was exposed completely, her vision was still swallowed by tears. Everyone in Seaview City knew that Ethan Foster was a wife-worshipping maniac, but he actually had another family outside behind her back. He actually held another woman in his arms and said, "I love you" to her. All the past memories flooded her heart. Ethan pursued her since high school. They were the envy of their classmates and a pair favored by their parents. It was smooth sailing all the way. The marriage came naturally, as if even God was blessing them. But such a man who loved her deeply actually had a change of heart. Holding back the tears in her eyes, Lydia's eyes became more determined. She wanted to leave forever. The world she was going to, he would never find. Ding, the phone notification sound rang again. "Lydia Lane, do you really think Ethan loves you very much? Believe it or not, one phone call from me can make him come out immediately. If you know what's good for you, you'd better give up your position immediately." Looking at the phone screen, the corner of Lydia's mouth raised in self-mockery. She didn't think Ethan loved her very much. She knew that sooner or later she would leave this world. Everything meant nothing more to her than passing clouds. Besides, if he really loved her, how could Bella Banks exist? Whoosh! The ward door was pushed open by Ethan. As soon as he came in, he saw Lydia with red eyes. "Honey, what's wrong? Is something uncomfortable?" Her heart sank fiercely. Lydia turned her face away. "Nothing, just watched a video." "What video?" Ethan's tone carried a hint of curiosity. A man loved a woman very much in the past. Everyone thought this man was a veritable wife-doting maniac, but later this man changed his heart. Listening to Lydia's words, Ethan opened his mouth, just about to say something, but his phone rang urgently. Ethan pressed the answer button and quickly walked out of the ward. Lydia didn't hear clearly what the person on the other end of the phone said later. Only when Ethan returned, his face was very ugly. "Honey, I'm sorry. I have something to do at the company. I can't stay with you today." Lydia knew without thinking that the call must be from Bella Banks. "Go, be safe." Without exposing Ethan's lie, Lydia said nonchalantly. In the following days, Lydia finally looked forward to being discharged. The sky was cloudless, and willow leaves swayed in the wind. Ethan held Lydia's hand, carefully walking down the hospital steps that smelled of disinfectant. "Wifey, you're finally discharged. You don't know, I went to pray for you before. I hope my wife is healthy, safe, happy, and joyful." Lydia looked at Ethan. "Then should we go to redeem the vow today?" Ethan hesitated slightly, his hand holding Lydia's, feeling a bit guilty. "No need, wifey, rest well, I'll go for you another day." Ethan's actions made Lydia very confused. Was he praying for her, or for Bella Banks? Maybe because she was leaving soon, Lydia suddenly really wanted to know if Ethan had her in his heart all these years. Unusually persistent. "Since you paid so much for me, I naturally have to go to redeem the vow." Whatever Ethan wanted to say was silenced by Lydia's direct stare. Helpless, he took Lydia to the mountain sanctuary. The sanctuary was not close to the city, taking about 40 minutes by car. Surrounded by mountains on all sides, the mountain range stretched endlessly, with spiritual smoke curling up. In the sanctuary, the loud chanting sound was far away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Ethan knelt before the altar, palms together. "May my wife and I be together forever. May we live life after life, year after year, month after month, our hearts never separated." Lydia imitated Ethan, kneeling on the cushion and lighting incense. After redeeming the vow, Ethan picked up a wishing plaque, wrote his wish on it, and personally tied it to the ancient tree. Then, he looked at her deeply. "Honey, we will definitely get what we wish for." Lydia didn't speak. In the night back home, lying alone in bed, the familiar mechanical voice sounded, reminding the host there are only the last 3 days left. The host will completely separate from this world. Please make preparations in advance. Lydia had a miserable smile on her lips. Okay, I know. The bright moon outside the window was obscured by dark clouds, as if it would be swallowed soon. Lydia knew that all this was about to end. She would leave here forever, forget all the unhappiness here, forget everything from the past, and also forget him, the man she had loved for a full 10 years, Ethan Foster. Before leaving the parallel world, Lydia did 3 things. First, Lydia destroyed all traces of herself in this home, including daily necessities. She took all those things to destroy. In the raging fire, Lydia seemed to see the love letters from when Ethan pursued her, and Ethan's repeated words of love rang in her ears again. "Wifey, you are finally my wife. Honey, I love you. If love needs a deadline, I hope it is life after life. Wifey, Ethan Foster only loves you." Fragmented memories flooded her heart. Those things that were once carefully treasured and cared for by Lydia were like dust in the ashes. Amidst the sparks, they gradually extinguished, finally disappearing without a trace. Second, she found a city billboard advertiser alone. She sent all the photos and videos Bella Banks had sent her to the advertiser and asked them to play them repeatedly on the huge advertising screens. The staff member was almost scared silly and asked, stammering, "Miss Lane, are you sure?" Her expression was as usual, her tone flat. "Sure, please help me add a small line of text. Lydia Lane sincerely wishes Ethan Foster and Bella Banks eternal happiness." Third, she prepared a sumptuous and romantic dinner. This dinner belonged only to Lydia and Ethan. It was their 10th wedding anniversary. Fortunately, Ethan remembered this day and returned from the company early, hugging Lydia and saying they would celebrate the anniversary together. But just as he sat at the dining table, his phone rang. He glanced at the phone screen. When he pressed the hang-up button, his finger obviously trembled. Looking at Lydia apologetically, Ethan was silent for a few seconds before picking up the phone and walking out. Moments later, when Ethan returned, he looked anxious. "Honey, I'm sorry I can't spend our anniversary with you. There's an emergency at the company." "Honey, don't worry. I will definitely make up the anniversary to you when I have the chance." He kissed Lydia nervously, turned, and walked away hurriedly. Watching Ethan drift further away, there were no more tears in the depths of Lydia's eyes and no lingering love in her heart. Where he went was self-evident. "Okay, I'll wait for you." Wait for him? Until the next century? Or the next mission? Giving a bitter smile, Lydia withdrew her thoughts and whispered, "Ethan Foster, goodbye." She watched Ethan's back until that figure completely disappeared from her sight. Finally looking at the empty home, the place where she had lived for 10 years. Every corner held memories of her and Ethan. The living room, he knelt on one knee and asked if she was willing to marry him. The moment she nodded in agreement, his eyes instantly turned red with excitement. The bedroom. The lingering scent of love seemed to still float in the air. Now, things remained, but people had changed. The kitchen. Rain or shine for 10 years, he personally cooked nutritious meals for her. That figure seemed to still echo in memory. But suddenly, it all disappeared. He said he would let her bully him for a lifetime. He said he would hold her in the palm of his hand for a lifetime. He said he promised not to let her suffer a bit of grievance. But later, these words were like a candle in the wind, disappearing without a trace. When Lydia returned to the bedroom, she felt only emptiness in her heart, and a wave of exhaustion she had never felt before swept through her body. Suddenly, a figure popped up in her mind again, Ethan Foster. At this time, what was he doing? Lingering with Bella, saying the love words he said to her back then to Bella? Or discussing a showdown with her, waiting to marry Bella? With a light chuckle, Lydia silently looked up at the wall clock. When the hour hand pointed to 12, Lydia slowly closed her eyes. Ding! The system's voice sounded. "Host, the time to leave the parallel world has arrived. Please prepare." Beep, beep, beep. Mechanical sounds rang continuously. Lydia only felt as if she had fallen into a huge vortex. Her soul rose slowly, weightless. Looking down, she saw the body that once belonged to her lose its breath. The corners of her mouth pulled into a detached smile. Ethan Foster, Goodbye, never to see you again in this life. Ah! Ethan, who was holding Bella Banks in his arms, suddenly felt as uncomfortable as if his heart had been hollowed out and couldn't help but exclaim. Bella's fair hands touched his chest, and her flaming red lips were about to kiss him when she was fiercely pushed away by Ethan. Ethan, what's wrong? Ethan was absent-minded. He grabbed his clothes and was about to leave. Ethan, where are you going? Ethan shook off Bella's pulling arm. Without looking back, he strode away. Ding dong! The moment the door opened, the doorbell rang simultaneously. The courier looked at Ethan and paused for a moment. Excuse me, are you Mr. Ethan Foster? What is it? Ethan looked confused. The courier moved several large boxes in front of Ethan and wiped his sweat. Mr. Foster, these items were sent to you by Miss Lydia Lane. Please sign for them. Lydia. Hearing this name, Ethan's face instantly darkened. Why would she send things to this address? Could it be she knew everything? After signing, Ethan opened the boxes. Inside was all of Ethan's past. The love letters Ethan gave to Lydia. The jewelry Ethan gave to Lydia. The expensive clothes and high-end bags Ethan gave to Lydia. Fingers pinching the edge of the box, Ethan felt as if his heart was dripping blood, a feeling as if he had been instantly hollowed out. How did she know? How did she know this address? Many thoughts flooded his mind. Ethan's face was gloomy as he rushed out quickly. On the drive home. At the traffic light intersection, the large advertising screen was full of photos of Ethan holding Bella Banks. Below the screen, there was a particularly conspicuous line of words. Lydia Lane sincerely wishes Ethan Foster and Bella Banks eternal happiness. Many people in Seaview City envied Ethan and Lydia's love. Naturally, quite a few people recognized him. Plus, he had prayed for Lydia before and made it to the trending search, so even more people recognized him. Isn't that Ethan Foster? Scumbag still has the face to come out. It's disgusting to see this kind of man. Ethan was wondering what happened when he looked up and saw the photos and videos of him and Bella on the big screen. A terrible premonition flooded his heart. Ethan only felt a buzzing explosion in his head. Everything in front of him became blurred. Ethan slammed on the gas, ran more than 20 red lights, and rushed into the house at the fastest speed. The moment he pushed open the door, Ethan stood frozen on the spot. His bottomless eyes turned crimson. He looked around but didn't see Lydia. Only an empty home. Facing everything in front of him, Ethan panicked instantly. He began to search frantically. Bedroom, study, kitchen, rooftop, garage. He searched every place he could think of, but he just couldn't see Lydia. Honey, wifey, with low roars, tears filled Ethan's cheeks. He slowly squatted down, holding his head with both hands, crying uncontrollably. His heart felt hollowed out, and his whole being was filled with intense regret. After a long while, Ethan held back the tears in his eyes and took out his phone to dial frantically. Hello, the number you dialed is powered off. Hello, the number you dialed is powered off, the mechanical voice sounded, making Ethan feel utterly hopeless. His gaze looked at every corner of the home again. It was as if Lydia's figure was still in front of him. Her eyes held lingering love, and the corners of her mouth curved into a sweet smile. Coming back from his trance, Ethan couldn't believe Lydia would really leave. Picking up the phone again, Ethan contacted everyone who knew Lydia. Have you seen my wife? Is my wife with you? Give my wife back to me quickly, just like that, until 2 hours later, Ethan still hadn't received any news about Lydia. During this time, the photos and videos of Ethan and Bella had been played hundreds of times on the large advertising screens. In an instant, the stock of Ethan's company plummeted, and he was quickly pushed to the forefront of the storm. Someone smashed his car, calling him a liar. Others cursed him upon seeing him, saying a man like him was a typical scumbag. As a result, the usually high and mighty Ethan could only hide at home, afraid to go out. It never rains, but it pours. Coincidentally, at this time, Ethan received news that Bella Banks was pregnant. Because after the incident was exposed, Ethan's company faced a crisis, and since he hadn't gone to the company during this time, Bella didn't have Ethan's protection and was often abused by colleagues. Neighbors looked at her with strange eyes, pointed at her, and even contacted property management to make her get out of the community. With nowhere to go, she could only come to find Ethan. Ethan, I'm pregnant, slap. As soon as Bella's voice fell, Ethan raised his hand and slapped her. His eyes were filled with endless anger. He had told Bella long ago not to cause trouble, but she wouldn't listen and even sent their photos to Lydia. This woman was too venomous. Lydia's departure had everything to do with her looking at Bella, who was crying like a tearful person in front of him. Ethan didn't deny that he had once been moved by this woman. But how could a moment of passion compare to eternity? "Get out," Ethan roared, scaring Bella into trembling all over. She thought Ethan would be very happy, but she didn't expect him to say such words. "Ethan, get out." Bella stood still, looking at Ethan with eyes full of disbelief. Her knees went soft, and she fell with a thud, kneeling at Ethan's feet, clutching his pant leg. "Ethan, you can't abandon me. I'm carrying your flesh and blood. Won't leave, right?" Ethan's eyes were like ice, ordering the servants. Throw her out. If Lydia hadn't left, perhaps Ethan might have held a trace of fantasy about Bella out of impulse. But seeing her use despicable means to force Lydia away showed how narrow-minded and venomous she was deep down. Ethan looked down on such a woman, and he certainly wouldn't let her enter the Foster family's door the moment the villa door closed. Ethan's eyes were like torches, his tone cold as ice. "Go abort the child." Listening to Ethan's words, Bella was instantly drowned in tears. She thought that with Lydia gone, she could replace her. But she never dreamed it would result in Ethan's abandonment. Crying for who knows how long, Bella slowly stood up and took out her phone to call Ethan's mother. "Mom, I'm pregnant with Ethan's child. Her parents died when she was very young, and she grew up in an orphanage." She thought she could rise rapidly in her career, but the results were unsatisfactory. Colleagues mocked her for having no background and no connections, ostracizing her everywhere. Until she met Ethan Foster, her life completely changed. She didn't want her sincere dedication to result in a heart full of desolation, especially since she now had a child. She couldn't give up easily, biting her lip. No matter what, she must marry into a wealthy family. Even if she had to pay a great price, she wouldn't hesitate. Ethan's mother didn't know the truth and disliked Lydia's distance. Since Bella carried the Foster family blood, she recognized Bella as her daughter-in-law. So, whether Ethan liked it or not wasn't important. What mattered was who could help the Foster family carry on the lineage and extend the family tree. Ethan, knowing everything, had a huge fight with his mother, but his mother wouldn't listen to him at all. "Ethan, Bella is already carrying your flesh and blood. Do you want the mother and son to wander the streets?" The chaotic days lasted for several months. Finally, after one storm after another passed, the Foster family's affairs were gradually forgotten by people. Bella got her wish and moved into the Foster home. She thought she had secured the position of Mrs. Foster and bossed the servants around. The servants swallowed their anger, miserable beyond words. When Lydia was there, she never scolded the servants. She said, "Everyone is equal, contributing to society, just with different divisions of labor." Occasionally, when servants talked back to Bella, she would slap them hard. "You like Lydia, but she's already dead now. This is my home. You all listen to me, or get the hell out. Our salary is paid by CEO Foster. What right do you have to make us leave?" At this time, an old nanny couldn't stand it anymore and stood up. Unexpectedly, Bella didn't speak but narrowed her dangerous eyes and raised her hand to slap the old nanny on the cheek. "There's no place for you to speak here. I am the mistress of this house. You." The old nanny was so angry her vision went black, and she fainted directly. Coincidentally, the direction she fainted in happened to hit Bella. Bella was thin and weak. Hit by the old nanny, she sat directly on the ground. A sharp pain came from her lower abdomen, and bright red blood flowed from between her legs. Ethan had been busy with company matters. After all, there were many deficits before, and he had to find ways to fill the vacancies. But as soon as he got home, he received the news that Bella had miscarried and the old nanny had fainted, both entering the hospital. Rushing to the hospital, Ethan felt a knife twist in his heart looking at the 5-finger print on the old nanny's face. That was his Nanny May. He grew up drinking Nanny May's milk. Nanny May didn't ask him for anything in return, but she shouldn't have suffered such treatment. "Take care of Nanny May for me." Ethan's eyes were cold and severe. He gave an order and turned to go to Bella's ward. Bella was informed of the miscarriage and that her uterine wall was thin, making it difficult to have her own children in the future. Her eyes dim, she was calculating what excuse to use to marry into the Foster family. At this moment, she suddenly saw Ethan's figure. Holding back the tears in her eyes, Bella grabbed Ethan's arm and begged bitterly, "Ethan, don't abandon me, we can adopt a child." As soon as she spoke, Bella choked up instantly. But when she met Ethan's icy eyes, her heart sank suddenly. "Ethan, adopt?" Ethan sneered. "I never thought about having children with you. Ethan, what are you saying?" Bella held Ethan and refused to let go. Ethan fiercely shook off Bella's pulling arm, staring at her tightly, his tone cold. "Bella Banks, I told you, the woman I love most in this life is Lydia Lane. I can't live without her. Why didn't you listen? Why did you have to provoke her? Do you think that because I treat you well, you can do whatever you want?" He pointed in the direction of Nanny May's ward. "Do you know who you hit?" "That's my wet nurse. I grew up on her milk." Speaking of this, Ethan sighed and took out a check. "Forget it, I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. This is a blank check, fill in the number yourself. Disappear completely from now on, don't appear again. Ethan, I really love you, I'm not after your money." When Bella shouted this sentence, her eyes honestly looked at the check in Ethan's hand. Greed is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. After a brief measure, Bella thought that no amount of money was safer than staying with Ethan. After all, as long as she could marry into a wealthy family, she would have no worries about food and clothing for a lifetime. But money, no matter how much, would run out one day. "Ethan, I've been with you for so many years, not fighting for favor, not asking for status. Please don't abandon me, okay?" Enough. Before Bella could finish her words, she was interrupted by Ethan's cold words. "We were together after all, isn't it good to part on good terms?" "No, I don't want to. I can't bear to leave you, Ethan. I really love you so much." As Bella spoke, she tried to grab Ethan's hands but was impatiently thrown off by the man. Seeing this, Bella simply stopped pretending. Looking coldly at Ethan, "Ethan, you obviously loved me so much before you could ignore Lydia for me. Was it all pretending? In front of Lydia, you can pretend to love Lydia very much, and when you are with me, you pretend to love me very much, right?" As her voice fell, Bella choked up, tears bursting from her eyes. From the first day with Ethan, Bella treated every meeting as the last. If there was a purpose behind this love, at least she was sincere towards Ethan. "Bella Banks, I don't understand what you're saying. That we got to this point is because you seduced me first." Ethan's voice was bitingly cold, making Bella tremble all over. Despair and anger occupied Bella's reason. She stood up abruptly, her desperate eyes filled with ridicule. "Ethan Foster, I seduced you. If you say a man can force himself on a woman, I believe it, but how can a woman force herself on a man? Clearly, it's you who lacked self-control." She sneered, looking at this man for whom she gave her sincerity only to receive desolation in return, the sarcasm at the corner of her mouth growing stronger. "Ethan Foster, as the company president, you are always high and mighty. You used your reputation and money to string me along. It was you who set up the trap step by step to pull me underwater. You made me fall in love with you, made me unable to leave you. Ha, I get it. So the love you kept talking about was just getting me at all costs, then making me heartbroken and desperate, and when necessary, breaking up, getting rid of me with money, making me disappear without a trace, right?" Listening to Bella's words, his eyes remained terrifyingly cold. Bella wanted to say something more, but at this moment the ward door was pushed open from the outside. "Mr. Foster, Nanny May is awake." "Nanny May?" Ethan walked out quickly. In Nanny May's ward, she held Ethan's arm tightly, speaking earnestly. "Ethan, I know I have no right to interfere in your affairs, but Bella Banks is really not good. Choosing a wife is luck. You don't want everything you built with your own hands to be destroyed by bad luck, right?" Nanny May's words implied something else, and Ethan naturally understood. Bella wasn't a good woman, she wouldn't bring him good luck. Such a woman, she wasn't worthy. "Nanny May, I understand, don't worry." When Ethan spoke, his eyes were unusually determined. Although he didn't say it explicitly, his thoughts were self-evident. He absolutely couldn't let Bella marry in. He wanted to find Lydia. He must find Lydia and bring her back. Nanny May nodded. "Ethan, remember this at all times. Only the rice in your mouth is food, only the clothes on your body are clothes, and the only one who truly aches for you is your wife." Listening to Nanny May's words, Ethan's eyes turned red instantly. His heart felt as if it had been smashed by a sharp weapon. It hurt so much he couldn't breathe. Opening his mouth, Ethan wanted to say something, but in the end, it all turned into silent bitterness. Nanny May, I know what to do. I will find Lydia, admit my mistakes proactively, and strive for her forgiveness. Coming out of Nanny May's ward, Ethan stood in the long hospital corridor, looking into the distance. Where did Lydia go? He had contacted everyone she knew. Could it be? She was in a bad mood and went traveling abroad, but why were all her things gone too? He couldn't figure it out no matter what. Ethan didn't understand how a living person could vanish into thin air. CEO Foster, we found the madam. The servant's voice trembled, not daring to even look at Ethan. Frowning tightly, Ethan asked urgently, where is she? The crematorium. Hearing this news, Ethan couldn't believe it at all. They must have identified the wrong person. His body swayed, and Ethan almost fainted directly. But he still held his forehead to steady himself and rushed out quickly. When he arrived at the place, Ethan acted very out of control. He grabbed the staff member by the collar. Did you make a mistake? What evidence do you have to prove that the dead person is my wife? The staff member didn't understand, but still spoke about the full-service funeral arrangement. At the same time, he showed Ethan the relevant documents from the funeral company. Taking the documents, Ethan's hands trembled, and he was completely swallowed by tears. Terminal illness diagnosis notification, cremation confirmation form. With red eyes and staggering steps retreating backward, Ethan grabbed the wall to barely stand steady. It turned out Lydia was sick, but she didn't tell him. She gritted her teeth and bore it alone, left silently alone, booked the funeral service alone. But what was he doing during that time? He was accompanying Bella Banks, feeling sorry for her pet dog. His hand, clutching the documents, trembled uncontrollably. Like a child who lost his beloved toy, Ethan leaned against the corner of the wall, sinking down inch by inch, squatting there and wailing loudly. Why? Why did God torture him like this? He truly lost the person he loved most forever. Never to see her again. A series of bad news made Ethan unable to withstand the blow. His vision went black, and he fainted. A few seconds later, Ethan woke up from the numbness. Remembering what Lydia had said to him, a man loved a woman very much, but in the end, this man changed his heart. If you change your heart one day, I will leave you forever. Mr. Foster, are you okay? The staff member patted Ethan's shoulder. When Miss Lane made the appointment with the funeral service, they asked her if she wanted to contact her family, but Miss Lane said her family was all dead. The staff member said the last few words very lightly, as if seeing through the betrayal, bearing not to add insult to injury, not wanting to hurt Ethan further. What else did she say? Ethan propped himself up to stand, looking at the staff member dejectedly. She said she didn't need a grave after death, just scatter her ashes in the mountains. Ethan couldn't listen to whatever the staff member said afterward. He just realized. It turned out Lydia knew from the very beginning. It turned out she hated him so much she didn't even want to leave him a chance to pay respects. Returning home, looking at the empty room, Ethan seemed to still see Lydia's smiling face, the figure that appeared by his side at all times. Trying to find some fragmented memories in her room, however, she didn't leave a single thing worth remembering, disappearing so thoroughly. Ding! The phone notification sounded. Ethan fantasized it was Lydia, but the message on the phone screen made him even sadder. Mr. Foster, Nanny May's high fever wouldn't go down, she passed away. A grand burial, Ethan extended a trembling finger and simply replied with 3 words heavy as gold. Clutching his heart, overshadowed by sorrow. After returning to the real world, the system gave Lydia a reward of $100 million. Hiding under the covers, Lydia laughed for a full night. In the real world, Lydia was a student with excellent character and learning. She was studying for her PhD. One day, on her way home from school, just as she left the school gate, she saw a truck rushing towards a girl. In a moment of urgency, Lydia ignored everything else and rushed directly in front of the little girl, trying to protect her with her weak arms. As a result, reality gave Lydia a fierce slap. The little girl was saved, but she was knocked flying. Fortunately, the system took her to another parallel world. She thought everywhere was the same. As long as she had a husband who loved her, she could live happily. Unexpectedly, 10 years resulted in Ethan's cheating. Thinking back now, Lydia truly regretted it. If she had come back after finishing the task, why waste time in another world? Time? Thinking of this, Lydia picked up her phone and checked the calendar. 10 days. It had only been 10 days since her accident in the real world, a burst of astonishment. At this moment, Lydia's phone rang. "Hello, Miss Lane, the school sponsor wants to meet you." "Oh, okay." She hung up the phone in a daze. She hadn't been to school for 10 days. She should explain to the leaders. But what did the sponsor want with her? With doubts in her heart, Lydia followed the address left by the other party and walked towards the Jenkins group. The secretary receiving Lydia was gentle and pleasant. After taking Lydia to the reception room, she brewed a cup of tea for her. Sitting in the reception room waiting, Lydia felt inexplicably flustered. The Jenkins group was a business tycoon in the real world, far surpassing the strength of the Foster family in the parallel world by unknown multiples. "Miss Lane, please wait a moment, the president will be here soon." "Okay, thank you," Lydia smiled. 5 minutes later, the door of the reception room was slowly pushed open. The man who walked in was fully 185 cm tall, wearing a dark blue custom-made suit. Even through the clothes, one could see his muscular figure. Those bright and piercing eyes made it hard to look away. She thought the president of Jenkins Group would be an old man. Unexpectedly, he was a handsome guy. "Hello, Mr. Jenkins. My name is Lydia Lane. The school notified me to see you." Julian Jenkins smiled faintly and waved his hand at Lydia. "Miss Lane, no need to be polite, please sit." Sitting opposite Lydia, Julian soon fell into silence, not speaking for a long time. Finally, it was Lydia who asked in surprise, "May I ask if Mr. Jenkins asked me to come for something?" Hearing Lydia's words, the man who had been silent for a long time slowly looked up and met her gaze. "Since Miss Lane is so straightforward, I'll get straight to the point. My wife passed away. I want to find someone to help me take care of the child, so if Miss Lane is willing, we can sign a contract. I don't have any requirements as long as Miss Lane can spend more time with the child. Of course, if Miss Lane is unwilling, then pretend I never said anything." After speaking, the man looked at Lydia nervously, seeming to wait for her answer. He knew it was indeed abrupt to say such things on the first meeting, but no woman in the world was more suitable to be his child's mother than Lydia. Actually, as the handsome president of Jenkins Group, Julian never lacked female pursuers. Whether they were professional businesswomen or nightlife flirts, any woman who saw him would throw themselves at him. After all, the Jenkins family had a big business. Marrying into the Jenkins family meant no worries about food and clothing and enjoying endless glory and wealth for the rest of life. But Julian had always been self-disciplined. Ordinary women simply couldn't catch his eye. After thinking carefully for a while, Lydia asked doubtfully, "Can I see the child first?" Julian thought such an abrupt request would definitely be rejected. But unexpectedly, Lydia actually agreed in a roundabout way. A trace of joy flashed in his eyes. "Okay, let's go over now." Jenkins' villa. The little girl held a teddy bear plushie. The feeling of being alone looked very desolate. A trace of pity flashed in her eyes. Lydia suddenly thought of herself. She often played alone. From childhood to adulthood, she didn't have many friends. Not for other reasons. Mainly because all her time was used for studying. Friends said she was a typical bookworm, very boring. Over time, except for 2 classmates in school, all her friends drifted away. "Her name is Nina Jenkins. After my wife passed away, she rarely goes out. She thinks about finding her mother all day long. Her personality has become very autistic, and she rarely speaks." Standing beside Nina, she seemed unaware, completely ignoring them, not even raising her head, focused entirely on the teddy bear in her hand. "Nina," Lydia squatted down, opened her arms, and revealed a smile as warm as a spring breeze. "Miss!" Nina looked up in confusion. The next second, she finally smiled and spoke, rushing into Lydia's arms with stumbling steps. "Miss, tell Nina a story, okay?" Lydia held Nina, feeling that this child looked somewhat familiar, as if she had seen her somewhere, a feeling of kindness at first sight. Fortunately, at this time, Julian spoke to solve the mystery. "Thank you for saving her that day." Lydia realized that the little girl she saved that day was Nina. No wonder she felt so familiar. "It doesn't matter. If it wasn't me that day, someone else would have done the same." Lydia smiled awkwardly. "Miss, didn't you say you would tell Nina a story?" Little Nina took Lydia's hand and walked towards her room. That night, Lydia didn't leave the Jenkins villa. The reason was simple. Nina held her happily and wouldn't let her leave no matter what. Julian slept in the room next to Nina and Lydia. Separated by a wall, he could clearly hear the conversation between Lydia and Nina, hear Lydia telling stories to Nina. Inexplicably, that night Nina stubbornly refused to sleep, but Julian slept very deeply and comfortably. From that day on, Julian would make more time to accompany Nina, taking Nina and Lydia everywhere to play. They went to the amusement park together, set off fireworks by the sea, stepped on waves, watched the sunrise, and greeted the sunset together. He said, "Miss Lane, when will you be willing to marry me?" Lydia smiled. "I came to help Nina, not to marry into a wealthy family." Who knew? Little Nina heard these words and wasn't happy. She pouted her little mouth and clamored, "No, I want Miss to be mommy. Miss is my mommy." After a few months, Nina seemed to have changed completely. She not only became more talkative than before, but also always had a smile on her face. She looked completely different from before. Regarding this, Papa Jenkins and Mama Jenkins saw it all. They felt Lydia was a kind girl and demanded Julian work harder to win Lydia over as soon as possible. Regarding this matter, Julian's attitude was also very firm. At first, he thought it was for Nina, but later, he knew it was following his own heart. One day, Julian took Nina and Lydia back to his parents' house. Papa Jenkins and Mama Jenkins watched the interaction between Lydia and Nina the whole time, moved to tears. Mama Jenkins held Lydia's arm, saying with red eyes, "Miss Lane, thank you for being willing to accept Nina. We are relieved that Nina has such a good mother like you." Saying this, she put a bracelet on Lydia's wrist. Lydia was flattered and dared not accept, quickly trying to take off the bracelet. "No, this is too expensive." Seeing Lydia refuse, Mama Jenkins smiled. She held Lydia's arm and said earnestly, "Silly child, this is a bracelet passed down in the Jenkins family. I prepared it specially to give to my future daughter-in-law. You are Nina's mother. If I don't give it to you, who do I give it to?" Lydia panicked instantly. "Auntie, this won't do. This is really too expensive." At this time, Papa Jenkins stepped in to smooth things over. "Lydia, just keep it if she asks you to. This is imperial green jade, such a good thing. She won't even give it to me when I ask." Listening to Papa Jenkins, Lydia looked at Julian. His gaze was burning, nodding at Lydia continuously. "All right, thank you, Auntie. Silly child, calling me Auntie now. Later you should change it to Mom." "Wow, Mommy has a mommy too. Oh yeah." Looking at the excited Nina, Lydia pulled her into her arms. A warm family atmosphere spread. However, happy times always seem short, until a crisp mechanical beep sounded in Lydia's mind. She thought that returning from the parallel space meant the mission was completed and she could pursue her dreams and live happily in the real world. Who knew it would pop up again so inopportunely? "Hello, host, the system has malfunctioned. Please return to the parallel world." "But I haven't prepared yet." Entering countdown now, 3, 2, 1. Whoosh! A white light flashed and disappeared. Lydia returned to the parallel space again. Back in the parallel world, the first thing Lydia did was explain everything to Julian. After all, ordinary people would find it hard to accept such things. Of course, Lydia was also worried about scaring little Nina, so she had to choose to lay her cards on the table. Unexpectedly, Julian seemed very calm and expressed willingness to cooperate. Although Nina didn't understand, the curious girl seemed to like this kind of role playing similar to time travel. Next, Lydia tried to wake up the system to ask about the specific task, but at this time, the dam system disappeared. Helpless, Lydia had to search for the latest news about Ethan Foster online. The search results shocked Lydia. The Foster group had gone bankrupt due to poor management. President Ethan Foster was drunk all day, mentally unstable. Withdrawing her gaze, Lydia knew it was all Ethan's own doing. Ding! Host, hello, please complete. Cut off all of Ethan Foster's illusions about you. At this time, the broken system appeared, left a sentence intermittently, and disappeared again. Meanwhile, the Foster family in the parallel world. Since Lydia left in June, the entire Foster home had become lifeless. The stench of alcohol made the passing servants want to vomit. After the matter between him and Bella was exposed, the company's stock slid all the way down. He also tried to turn the tide and went to find former partner companies. But those people avoided him like the plague when they saw him, afraid that his affairs would implicate their own companies. After several twists and turns, Ethan finally experienced the fickleness of the world, drinking at home all day, numbing himself with alcohol. The phone rang urgently. Ethan sat on the living room floor, glanced at the phone screen aside, feeling numb, and didn't answer. But the phone kept ringing. Helpless, Ethan looked at the phone with dim eyes, gave a drunken hiccup, and finally pressed the answer button. "Mr. Foster, hello. The heir of the Jenkins Group invites you to a banquet. Please arrive on time." Putting down the phone, Ethan simply couldn't believe his ears. Jenkins Group. Wasn't that the leader of the business world? Many business people found it hard to see the president of Jenkins Group even after waiting in line, but why did he specifically invite him? Calling back to confirm again and again, the dim eyes gradually lit up. He seemed to see the dawn of hope and the future again. On the other side, after Julian and Nina came to the parallel world, they quickly adapted to the environment here. During this time, Julian gave Lydia roses every day, and Nina liked to take Lydia's phone, responsible for taking pictures of the two. Even in a different world, they still lived very happily. "I have notified Ethan Foster to attend the banquet." Lydia took the flowers handed over by Julian and heard his voice sound. Looking at the roses in her hand, Lydia smiled. The show is about to start. When saying this, Lydia's eyes carried a sense of realization. When she did the mission and came to this world initially, she never thought Ethan would betray her one day. She wondered, when the banquet started and he saw Lydia standing beside Julian, what he would think. Time flew, and it was a few days later. On the day of the banquet, Julian held Nina, took Lydia's arm, and they got into their exclusive ride, a top-spec Rolls-Royce. Soon, they arrived at the banquet venue. A red carpet was paved all the way from the drop-off point to the banquet hall. Throughout the journey, ladies in cheongsams welcomed them enthusiastically. In the venue hall, various pastries, fruit platters, and high-end drinks were readily available. Just as they entered the venue, Julian's phone rang. Answering the phone, Julian frowned. Lydia asked him what was wrong. He just waved his hand and smiled, saying it's nothing. Without asking more, holding Nina's small hand, they walked all the way towards the central position of the banquet hall. At this moment, Lydia didn't notice that a figure behind her was watching her constantly. And that person was someone from Ethan's company. Zach Miller, who used to have a good relationship with Ethan, often calling him brother. Originally, he wasn't qualified to attend such a high-end banquet. But Ethan missed Lydia day and night, refusing to let go of the wine bottle. Helpless, in order to win over high-end people, Zach had to attend on Ethan's behalf. Who knew, as soon as he entered the venue, he saw Lydia at first, Zach didn't dare believe the person he saw was really Lydia. After all, Lydia was dead. The crematorium had already notified of the cremation. He had witnessed the whole process, but he clearly heard the man beside Lydia call her by the same name. A trace of panic flashed in his eyes. Zach quickly took a photo and sent it to Ethan. Ethan received the call drunkenly, and the alcohol instantly dissipated a lot. Holding the phone, he roared, "What did you say?" Hanging up the phone, Ethan's eyes were crimson, looking terrifying. Back then, not seeing Lydia one last time had always been a wound in his heart. But Lydia was dead. He was present during the cremation. If the person Zach saw was really Lydia, did he encounter a ghost? The steps trying to rush out the door stopped abruptly. Why didn't he believe it could the dead come back to life? But looking at the photo sent by Zach, it was indeed Lydia. Everything was so real. Examining it carefully for a long time. After all, being husband and wife for 10 years, Ethan confirmed that the person in the photo was indeed Lydia. Trembling fingers caressed the phone screen, tears dripping down involuntarily. How long had it been since he saw Lydia? It seemed like centuries had passed. After Lydia left, he sent Bella away and got drunk all day. He hated himself to death, hoping Lydia could come into his dreams. Or hoping he would die too, to go to the world where Lydia was. But after experiencing so many emotional twists and turns, her figure appeared in his sight once again. After not seeing her for so long, she was still so beautiful. It seemed she had more flavor than before. The dim eyes finally burst into a long-lost light. "Honey, I finally found you. This time, I will absolutely not let you leave me again." Hope was rekindled in his heart. He immediately picked up his phone and sent a message. "I'll be there right away, you follow her, send me the location anytime." The phone was tightly gripped in Ethan's palm. This time, he would never let go, never lose Lydia again. Half an hour later, Ethan rushed into the banquet hall. Like bright stars, the French crystal chandelier illuminated the surroundings, highlighting the strength of the Jenkins group. Under the crystal chandelier, the people attending the banquet were equally dazzling, as if everyone here was a protagonist. In the crowd, Ethan's eyes searched wantonly. Finally, in the most dazzling position, he recognized Lydia at a glance. The next second, Ethan froze slightly. There was a man beside Lydia. He was dressed high-end, spoke extraordinarily well, and was handsome. Many business people toasted the man proactively, and on her other side, she held a little girl about 4 or 5 years old. Inexplicably, that little girl's eyebrows and eyes seemed somewhat similar to Lydia. Lydia stood there in a pure white evening gown, her long hair pinned up, looking pure and beautiful like Snow White. The scene before him made Ethan gasp. Just at this moment, the little girl Lydia was holding looked at him, then looked up and said to Lydia in a childish voice, "Mommy, there's an uncle over there who keeps looking at you." The immature voice carried innocence, drowning out the music in the banquet hall as soon as she spoke. Following the direction pointed by the lotus root-like arm, everyone saw Ethan standing at the entrance of the banquet hall, looking at Lydia with burning eyes. Honey. Tears were like a bursting dam, instantly drowning Ethan. Staggering, he approached Lydia step by step. For those few seconds, Ethan's mind was blank. He thought Lydia would throw herself into his arms like before, crying bitterly while holding him. But he was wrong, terribly wrong. He didn't wait for Lydia's embrace, nor did he wait for her words of longing. He was quickly stopped by security guards and could only look from across the crowd. The sudden scene attracted the attention of everyone in the banquet hall. Someone took the lead and shouted, "Oh, isn't that the cheating Ethan Foster?" Following this voice, the surrounding people sighed, and cursing sounds surged like a tide. If it weren't for cheating, the Foster group wouldn't have ended up like this today. How does this kind of person have the face to attend the banquet? Kick him out. He almost put the entire Seaview City business world in a predicament. Various nasty words sounded in Ethan's ears like a curse, but he didn't shrink back, staring straight at Lydia, desperately moving towards her. Unfortunately, he was no longer the Ethan Foster of the past. The security guards held him firmly, making it impossible for him to approach. Honey, it's Ethan, look at me." He wanted to be closer to Lydia, wanted to say sorry to her, wanted to apologize sincerely. He wanted to go back to the past, wanted to be like before, wanted to be the loving couple everyone envied. But he had exhausted all his strength, unable to break free from the security guard's pull, and was finally driven out for disturbing the venue. Julian, who took all this into his eyes, raised his eyebrows slightly and turned to look at Lydia. "He is Ethan Foster?" Lydia nodded. She thought the mission was completed, and returning this time, seeing Ethan wouldn't cause ripples in her heart. But inexplicably, seeing the moment Ethan was dragged out by security, her heart still twitched fiercely. Fortunately, the experience of the car accident with Bella pulled Lydia's thoughts back to reality. At that time, Ethan was a prominent figure in Seaview City, but now he was like a rat crossing the street. The fickleness of the world was truly terrifying to think about. Lowering her eyes, Lydia touched Nina's small head. "It's because Mommy is too pretty." "Right?" Nina pouted innocently, clapping her small lotus root hands, eyes full of envy and praise. "Mommy is the prettiest in the world." After being kicked out of the banquet, Ethan walked on the streets of Seaview City like a walking corpse, dazed. Why was there another man beside Lydia, and why was she holding a little girl's hand? Too many things didn't make sense. Too many things he wanted to ask personally. But really meeting, time was so short, causing him not to have time to say a single word. After the banquet ended, Lydia took Julian's Rolls-Royce and returned to the villa with Nina. Julian cooked a table full of French cuisine and some stomach-nourishing meals specially for her. They played games and watched TV together. Until seeing Nina yawn, her eyes carrying a bit of sleepiness, did he carry her to the room. But just then the bodyguard's voice sounded. "Miss Lane, someone is looking for you." Everyone in this parallel world knew she was dead. So late, who would come looking for her? Suddenly, Lydia thought of a person, Ethan Foster. Looking at the pouring rain outside the window, even a hateful heart would twitch gently. Getting up, just about to go out, her wrist was grabbed by Nina. "Mommy, are you going out? Do you not want Nina anymore?" Looking at the reluctance and fear in Nina's eyes, Lydia's heart softened again. For so long, she had established a deep emotional bond with Nina. Nina was very afraid of losing her mother again, holding Lydia and refusing to let go. This made Lydia feel very difficult, so she had to look at Julian for help. Seeming to see through everything, Julian took Lydia's arm. He said, "Lydia, this is not your fault. It was Ethan who didn't know how to cherish, so he lost you. Now it should be when he needs you most, but have you thought for yourself? He comes to find you when he needs you, betrays you when he doesn't need you. What does he take you for? Since you have reached this step, a broken mirror is hard to round again. Whatever you do depends on you. I hope you can follow your heart and make the most correct choice." Julian's words sounded profound, but one sentence was true. Some things, maybe she should think for herself. "I understand." Lowering her eyes, Lydia whispered, "You're right, since fate has ended, it's a past that can never be returned to. But there are some words I must make clear to him face to face. I don't want him to disturb my peaceful life again. Of course, there is another reason for the mission." Julian didn't say anything more, just smiled and nodded. Leaning over, kissing Nina on the cheek, Lydia whispered, "Nina, be good, sleep well alone at home. Mommy promises Nina will see Mommy as soon as she opens her eyes, okay?" Nina nodded, hugged Lydia and kissed her cheek, then lay obediently on the bed and closed her eyes. After leaving the house, Lydia saw a familiar figure standing in the heavy rain, letting the rain soak his whole body without moving a bit. Seeing Lydia walk out of the villa, the man's tears and rain blurred his vision together. Reaching out to wipe his cheek, Ethan strode forward, opening his arms. The next second, just as he was about to hold Lydia in his arms, he saw the man behind her, froze, and stood stunned on the spot. "Honey!" Opening his mouth, Ethan was drowned by tears again. Lydia and the man behind her each held an umbrella. Her umbrella was held over Ethan's head, her eyes flat as water, looking like she was looking at a stranger. After a few seconds of silence, Lydia's voice sounded along with the crash of the heavy rain hitting the ground. Finished crying. "Ethan, I remember telling you on our wedding day that I hate lies the most. But you bought a villa for Bella, went to have an affair with her every day after coming back from the company. Why could you still pretend to be so good to me? Why lie to me?" Lydia thought her heart would be calm when saying these words. But inexplicably, as soon as the words came out, her heart felt congested and a wave of anger surged. For this man she once loved deeply, her once anticipated lover, she was truly heartbroken. She hoped they could be happy forever, but sincere dedication was exchanged for a heart full of desolation. All expected beauty was just Ethan's skilled disguise. "Ethan, it's not that I didn't give you a chance. Every time there was an emergency at the company, didn't you go to find Bella? I asked you to come back early, but how did you answer? You pretended nothing was wrong, let me sleep well, taking me for a fool, right?" When she first discovered Ethan and Bella were close, she still fantasized that Ethan loved her and wouldn't do excessive things. Until Ethan came home less and less. Until she had a car accident, and the man who claimed to love her most actually threw himself at Bella. At that moment, Lydia completely woke up to reality. It turned out love was deceptive. A 10-year marriage couldn't match a moment of passion. "I asked you to come home after work because I was worried about you having an accident on the road. I told you not to get close to Bella because I saw she was a wolf in sheep's clothing. She doesn't have a heart? What does she use to love you? I'm quite surprised you're still alive now. I thought that White Lotus would make you marry her, then kill you to inherit all your assets." Knowing Ethan for so many years, this was the first time Lydia spoke harsh words. The eyes looking at Ethan no longer held love, nor hate. More of it was melancholy and irony. After this period of separation, Ethan finally understood a truth. That was, the person he loved most had always been Lydia, and no one could replace her. At this moment, listening to Lydia's ironic words, Ethan slowly lowered his head. 1,000 words turned into silent tears, leaving only secret sobbing. If it were before, for other things, Lydia would definitely comfort him, persuade him. But now she only had complaints. In the rain, Lydia's phone rang, and she answered directly without thinking much. "Mommy, didn't you say as long as I open my eyes again, you would appear by my side? I've already opened my eyes, why aren't you here?" Lydia's voice became soft, whispering comfort. "Nina, be good, Opening eyes again doesn't mean blinking, it means waiting until dawn. As soon as her voice fell, Ethan became anxious instantly. Lydia, who is that kid? Why does she call you mommy? Ethan's roaring voice scared Nina on the other end of the phone into crying. Mommy? Wah wah. Nina cried miserably, heartbreakingly. Nina, be good, don't cry, you are a big kid now, learn to be strong. Seeing Lydia care so much about the child on the other end of the phone, Ethan's eyes were full of disbelief. After a long time, watching Lydia hang up the phone, he narrowed his eyes at her. Why does that kid call you mommy? What exactly went wrong between us? Was it you cheating within marriage or me? Ethan Foster, Lydia's head buzzed. She never thought Ethan was such a person. Everyone knew what he did with Bella, yet he wanted to distort the truth and make false countercharges. If you didn't cheat within marriage, how would you know him? Ethan roared with red eyes, pointing his finger at the man behind Lydia. Also, why does that child call you mommy? When did you have a child for that scumbag? Looking at the enraged Ethan, Lydia gave a self-mocking sneer. Ethan, you also know what pain feels like. Then, can you imagine how my heart shattered when you were with Bella? At that time, Lydia really couldn't accept that the widely admired love eventually became a joke known to everyone. Now you know how uncomfortable betrayal tastes, right? Then forget me, regarding your world, just pretend I never came after speaking. Lydia didn't look back, holding Julian's arm and returning to the villa. No, it's not like that. How could it be like this? Honey. Honey, heart-wrenching voices came from behind but didn't make Lydia turn back. Her heart had gone cold, chilled on that first night when Ethan held Bella and lied to her repeatedly. Lydia, don't go, let's talk, the roaring voice came again. Lydia stopped and slowly looked back, meeting Julian's eyes. The corners of his mouth raised slightly, a trusting look fell, nodding at Lydia. In the heavy rain, Lydia walked towards the man who made her heart cold as an ice cave. Looking at the man drenched like a drowned rat in front of her evoked many past memories in Lydia. Thoughts surged in her heart, filled with emotions. His promises were like the untouchable galaxy, turning into tears, broken by memories. The moment she opened her mouth, 1,000 words reached her lips but turned into silence. Must we be full of blame between us, hurting each other, unable to be honest? When saying this, Lydia was full of puzzlement. Why did he lie to her repeatedly? Must many accidents be blown away by the wind before relief comes? Accusing words were finally swallowed back by Lydia. Many things she always couldn't figure out. Couldn't figure out why he lied, couldn't figure out why he wouldn't let go, couldn't figure out why the person who said love first betrayed first in the end. Hearing Lydia's words, Ethan stiffened on the spot. He couldn't explain what it was either. Was it passion? Was it fate? Or he lacked self-control, couldn't resist seduction. Lydia didn't wait for his answer, just turning her face to look the other way. Taking a deep breath, Lydia continued. Ethan, the one who chased me for so many years was you. The one who kept saying he loved me was you. But in the end, the one who betrayed was also you. Why do you believe that my 10 years of youth, 10 years of giving, being hurt so deeply, would definitely forgive you? Now you see, I have a happy family, a man who loves me, I live very well now, very relaxed. So, I hope you won't disturb my peaceful life in the future. Don't come to disrupt the happiness I finally obtained. Her gaze fell on Ethan again. Perhaps this was the last time Lydia sized him up. After all, he was the man who lived with her for a full 10 years. It was just a pity that marriage wasn't as romantic and beautiful as she imagined. If he could be seamless, he could show favor to other women, even profess love. That wasn't a promise, just vocabulary to add to the fun. Since he took love so lightly, why should she brood over it? Ethan didn't listen to what Lydia said. He only remembered that all of Lydia's items disappeared, even her identity proof was destroyed. This person seemed to have evaporated from the world. But why did she suddenly appear at the Jenkins group banquet? And why did that banquet have to invite him? Could it be? She just wanted to use this method to make him repent. Suddenly looking up, Ethan grabbed Lydia's hand and put it on his chest. Honey, you have always been my wife. There is only you in my heart. I was just playing with Bella. Seeing Lydia withdraw her arm, Ethan looked at her in disbelief. You came back and let me attend the Jenkins group banquet, wasn't it to give me a chance? I came back indeed because of you, but not to give you a chance. Lydia took a deep breath, trying not to let her tears fall. I came back to make things clear with you. A broken mirror is hard to round between us. We can never go back to the past. Hearing Lydia's words, Ethan's face darkened instantly, his eyes full of bitterness. Honey, any man makes mistakes. Why can't you give me one chance? Why can't you forgive me? Sorry, men and women are different. A man can sleep with 10,000 women but have only one woman in his heart, but women are different. Whoever's bed she climbs into, she gives her heart to him. I don't deny, maybe you still have me in your heart, reluctant to let me leave, but time will prove everything. You will let go in the future. Thank you for the mistakes you made, allowing me to possess someone who understands love better. In the night rain, the look Lydia gave the man last was full of complexity. But in the end, she turned around ruthlessly, looking extremely like the Ethan of the past. Julian stood at the villa door, waiting for Lydia all the time. Wait until she came to his side, he grabbed her into his arms, holding her very tightly. As if afraid she would leave. Whoosh! The moment the villa door was pushed open, Nina stretched out her lotus root arms and rushed out with open arms. Mommy, Lydia squatted down, gently stroking Nina's cheek. Why didn't you listen to Mommy? Why didn't you sleep well? Nina kissed Lydia on the cheek with a smack. Mommy wasn't here, I couldn't sleep. Looking at the scene before him, Julian's eyes were full of happy indulgence. In Nina's room, Lydia told her stories, humming a lullaby lightly. Little Nina was also very obedient, yawning under Lydia's humming and closing her eyes. However, just when Lydia thought the little guy had fallen asleep, Nina suddenly opened her eyes and asked Lydia, Mommy, who was the person looking for you today? Why did he call you wife? Lydia paused slightly, not expecting the little guy to ask such a topic. It was Julian on the side who touched Nina's head and smiled. That person is Mommy's former relative, but he did something that made Mommy sad, so Mommy doesn't want to talk to him anymore. Oh, Nina seemed to understand something. Then I will definitely be obedient in the future, definitely not make Mommy angry, so Mommy can be with me forever. Lydia chuckled lightly, giving a shallow kiss on Nina's forehead, whispering, Sleep, if you don't sleep, Mommy will really be angry. Okay, perhaps Lydia's last words to Ethan worked. He didn't come to find her again during this time. And Lydia didn't have time to pay attention to Ethan, nor did she want to know what he was thinking. Because she received Julian's proposal. The wedding of a lifetime is the most important moment. At first, Lydia refused, saying she hadn't considered it well yet. Who knew, Julian domineeringly took her into his arms, smiling with a bit of shyness. I don't want to miss it, I'm afraid if I miss it. It's a lifetime. They managed to come to this parallel world thanks to the system failure. Naturally, they had to go to more places and have fun. By the way, find a super romantic place to hold a grand wedding that everyone envies. From diamond rings to wedding dresses, from locations to wedding styles. Julian did everything personally throughout the process. However, although Lydia was only responsible for cooperating, she was still tired enough to want to sleep. Sleep if you're tired. Julian sat aside, patted his solid, broad shoulders, smiling sweetly. The corners of Lydia's mouth raised, leaning on Julian's shoulder. Surprisingly, she fell asleep as soon as she closed her eyes. That feeling was very secure. Until, several hours later, she kept asking, Is your shoulder numb? Julian smiled, eyes curving. I am honored, one day. Lydia and Julian took Nina to Disney. They rode the Ferris wheel together, rode the carousel together, and played many amusement projects together. Talking and laughing all the way, very sweet. But when they were ready to return, just walking to the entrance of the amusement park, the faces of several people instantly darkened. They coincidentally saw a person they least wanted to see, the person who disgusted them the most, Ethan Foster. Holding a bouquet of bright roses in his hand, he knelt on one knee. Holding a French custom-made wedding ring high, the look towards Lydia carried heat and apology. Honey, I love you, come back to my side, okay? His affectionate words were full of expectation. Lydia gave a bitter smile and shook her head. She thought Ethan had figured it out, saw through it, so he didn't come to find her during this time. It turned out that not only was their fate over, but even their thoughts were not on the same level. Raising her head, Lydia withdrew her gaze, pulling Julian and Nina straight past Ethan. At this time, an accident happened again. An out-of-control private car honked constantly while rushing fiercely towards Ethan. The driver's eyes were wide open, unknown if it was fear or intent. Out of instinct, Lydia pushed Julian away, hugged Nina tightly in her arms, and blocked her eyes. Bang! The violent impact caught Ethan, who was kneeling on the ground too late to dodge, off guard, knocking him flying dozens of meters directly. He hit the opposite wall heavily before falling down. Ethan vomited mouthfuls of bright red blood, his burning gaze looking at Lydia all the time. Lydia turned around holding Nina, gently patting her back. Nina wasn't scared, right? Nina shook her head and looked at Daddy Julian. Julian strode to their side, protecting them in his arms. Lydia, are you okay? Julian's tone carried heartache. Lydia shook her head. I'm fine. This scene made Ethan's heart ache. Once upon a time, such a scene was déjà vu. Tears mixed with blood water, sliding down Ethan's nose bridge together, dripping on the ground. It turned out that the feeling of not being cherished and being ignored was like this. Loss, pain, and the haze in his heart all gathered together. At this moment, Ethan regretted his past, but unfortunately, it was too late. When the perpetrator of the car accident was pulled out of the driver's cab by the police, everyone was shocked. It was a familiar face, Bella Banks. After receiving Ethan's check, she didn't leave according to his arrangement. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Why couldn't she marry into a wealthy family? Was Ethan playing her from beginning to end? Fine, since she couldn't get him, no one else should think about getting him. She wanted to destroy him with her own hands originally. Bella still had some feelings for Ethan. She followed Ethan all the way to Disney, hesitating all the time. But just now, she witnessed Ethan proposing to Lydia with her own eyes. The person she missed day and night was actually lying to her from start to finish. Anger burned. In an instant, Bella lost all reason. The police dragged Bella out, and she refuted hoarsely. This man deserves to die. He is a scumbag. Garbage playing with feelings. He harmed me, made me unable to have my own children for a lifetime. Go to die, go to die. Slap. No one expected that the first thing Ethan did after struggling to get up from a pool of blood was actually to use all his strength to slap Bella fiercely. That look wished to kill her with his own hands. It seemed he was still too merciful. Had he known she was this kind of pestering woman, he should have found someone to kill her during his glorious career period. Just as he was about to curse Bella, Julian came to his side. His scarlet eyes glared at him fiercely. Bang! A fierce kick to Ethan's lower abdomen. The teetering Ethan finally fell down again. He wanted to struggle up again, but no matter what, he couldn't stand up. Then, Julian looked at the police with renewed hatred. Please take this woman away. I will pursue all her responsibilities. A light sentence had already defined the ending Bella was about to face. What awaited her would be a long, dark prison disaster. When taken away by the police, there was no regret on Bella's face. She kept sneering at Ethan, her voice getting louder and louder, very frightening. Ethan Foster, this is the end of you playing with feelings, you deserve it. Ethan didn't notice Bella's gaze, nor did he care what she said. He looked at Lydia reluctantly and shouted her name with all his might. Lids! Lydia stood not far from Ethan but didn't look at him. Ethan, I've already said what needed to be said. You shouldn't have followed me. I know, everything in the past was my fault. Even if you blame me, beat me, resent me, I have no complaints. But with our feelings of so many years, how can you let go just like that? As he spoke, Ethan's voice became choked. Honey, please, don't leave me. Ethan's final roar still made Lydia stop. Ethan, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. From the first time you lied to me, the first time you went to find Bella, the first time you betrayed, cracks appeared in our feelings, and we can never go back. Ethan struggled again, wanting to get up, but failed all the time. Using the last trace of strength, he opened his arms and said with difficulty, I know I was wrong, honey. Can you hug me one last time? Lydia turned around, looking at the man lying in a pool of blood, but couldn't raise any ripples in her heart. She didn't walk over, just stood indifferently on the spot. Ethan, we can never go back to the past, don't you understand? Ethan seemed not to have heard what Lydia said, continuing to beg bitterly. Honey, please hug me one last time. Mommy, at this time, Nina pulled the corner of Lydia's clothes, looking at her pitifully. Mommy, this person is so pitiful. Mommy, hug him, Nina won't be angry. Looking at the sensible Nina, Lydia smiled and squatted down to ask, Nina, if someone stabbed Mommy's heart with a knife, would you forgive him? Nina didn't understand, blinking her big watery eyes, hesitated for a while and said firmly, no. Lydia took a deep breath. Nina is a good girl, Nina is right. Looking back at Ethan, Lydia's eyes became colder. Ethan, from now on, I don't want to see you again, don't want to know any news related to you again. Hearing Lydia's piercingly cold words, Ethan burst into tears instantly. Honey, where are you going? Don't leave me behind. Ethan's fingers dug tightly into the ground, dragging a long, bloody trail on the ground. He looked deeply at the woman in front of him, trying to take all her brightest moments into his eyes, treasuring them forever. Honey, 10 years of feelings, can you really let go? Yes, I can. I have already deregistered from this world, and this world no longer belongs to me. As for you, no longer my lover, no longer my family, just an unrelated stranger. I have nothing to do with you anymore. After speaking, Lydia pulled Nina's small hand and left resolutely. Ethan cried uncontrollably, his voice sounding like it came from the depths of hell. Honey, do you really not want me anymore? His heart twitched fiercely. Inexplicably, Ethan's heart felt like it was instantly hollowed out. The corner of his mouth raised a bitter smile, years of feelings, tears of repentance, stuck in his throat. From the first time he contacted Bella, he shouldn't have been lucky. He righteously thought Lydia wouldn't leave him. As long as he earned more money, as long as he said more sweet words, Lydia would agree, even accept Bella. He never thought things would turn out like this today. With vision going black, the arm Ethan stretched out towards Lydia finally dropped heavily. Receiving the news that the president of Jenkins Group and Lydia were getting married was a week later. Originally, Ethan should have been recuperating in the hospital at this time. After all, he was hit quite hard. But he came uninvited in a wheelchair. He secretly hid in the corner, watching the bride who originally belonged to him, the wife who belonged to him, the family who belonged to him, wearing a white wedding dress, holding a little girl's hand, walking towards Julian step by step. She was very beautiful. Even the stars in the sky couldn't compare. Looking at Lydia from afar, tears drowned him again. Originally, they could also have a happy and warm home. But just because of his momentary confusion, all beauty was destroyed by his own hands. She would rather be the mother of someone else's child, rather marry a man who was uncle-aged than reconcile with him, nor bear children for him. How deeply was she hurt? How much did she hate him? Like another form of punishment, the feeling of heart stinging came one after another. The moment tears fell, Ethan finally understood. From today on, she was no longer his bride. She was another man's bride. They really couldn't go back. Looking at the magnificent scene before him, his vision gradually blurred. With red eyes, he held back the tears. Thinking of what Lydia once said to him, "You are a man, men bleed but do not cry. No matter what you experience, you must learn to be strong." Silently, he still maneuvered the wheelchair and left. For a long time, Ethan couldn't let go. He locked himself at home all day. The company failed, his wife left too, he returned to that decadent self. Holding the wine bottle all day, ignoring outside matters. After learning about this, his childhood friend who returned from abroad took a few friends and dragged Ethan out to relax. Surprisingly, this time Ethan didn't refuse. All the way out, there was no smile on Ethan's face. Sitting in his friend's car, Ethan either smiled bitterly or cried loudly. Obviously, because of Lydia's remarriage, he suffered mental stimulation and blows. In the bar, Ethan's eyes were dim, holding foreign wine and muttering to himself the whole time. The surrounding atmosphere couldn't infect him at all. What's the use of apologizing? I'm incompetent, I did wrong. If given another chance, I definitely wouldn't be seduced. Honey, don't marry someone else. No one in this world loves you more than me. He didn't know how long since he had a good sleep. Reluctant to even open the curtains, afraid of losing the familiar scent, diluting Lydia's aura. As time passed, after a few bottles of wine, Ethan didn't get drunk, but became more sober the more he drank. Perhaps he just wanted to get drunk, but it was precisely this sobriety that made him sadder. Holding the wine bottle, he gave a contemptuous sneer. When I was at my best, this woman followed me. Now that I'm not good, she leaves the next second. He cried again. Honey, it's all my fault. I couldn't resist temptation. Please come back to me, okay? As long as you are willing to come back, I'll do anything. If you don't let me drink, I'll stop drinking immediately, okay? Honey, please don't leave me. At this moment, no one could imagine. The once powerful president of Foster Group would become like this now. Seeing this, Ethan's childhood friend called a few beauties to accompany him. Several girls walked towards Ethan, sat beside him, serving thoughtfully. Mr. Foster, let's drink together? Mr. Foster, don't keep people 1,000 miles away. Mr. Foster, how boring to drink alone. Get out, a loud shout scared the girls into trembling all over, running out dejectedly. One girl ran a bit slower and was slapped fiercely by Ethan. I said get out, do you not understand? Ethan, let go of what needs to be let go. People have to look forward, right? Ethan, there are plenty of good women in the world. You can't go on being decadent like this, right? Women are just clothes. Change them if they get dirty. What did you say? Hearing the words of his childhood friend and several friends, the silently drinking Ethan instantly turned red-eyed. What do you take Lydia for? The friend was startled. We just want to advise you, even if Lydia were by your side, she wouldn't want to see you like this, right? Yeah, if you want women, we can satisfy you with as many as you want. Why bother? Ethan, look on the bright side. Honestly, I really couldn't tell what was so good about Lydia. Changing a woman is no big deal. Find your own happiness. Originally, these words were meant to persuade Ethan. But in Ethan's ears, they became ridicule, became satire. Narrowing his dangerous eyes, Ethan gripped the wine bottle tightly. Bang, bang, bang. For Lydia, he didn't mind falling out with his childhood friend. No one could look down on the woman he loved deeply. No one could speak ill of Lydia. No one could replace Lydia's position in his heart. Ethan, are you crazy? The friend covered his head, roaring at Ethan. Yes, I'm crazy, I am just crazy. Ethan waved his hand and punched his friend. You brought me to this kind of place. None of you are good people. Crack, as he spoke, Ethan smashed a bottle on his friend. Crack, with a crisp sound, his friend's nose bridge broke, staggering backward. Ethan Foster, you? Get out, you all get out. My wife doesn't like people smoking. She doesn't like the smell of smoke. My wife doesn't like people drinking. She hates the smell of alcohol, Ethan roared. Until a girl looking very, very much like Lydia walked in tremblingly. Mr. Foster. Following the girl's voice, Ethan stopped his movements abruptly, freezing on the spot. Looking up, Ethan's eyes turned red instantly. Honey? Stunned, Ethan pulled the girl's arm and knelt down. I knew you couldn't bear to leave me. I knew you wouldn't marry someone else. Do you know? After you disappeared, I looked for you for a long time. I searched for everyone you knew, but there was still no news of you. Honey, I really know I was wrong. Please forgive me. Honey, I won't make mistakes again in the future. Please don't leave me again, okay? Please. Slap, slap, slap. Ethan didn't notice the frightened girl. He talked to himself, slapping himself continuously. The sound of slaps resounded around, making people's hearts jump. After a long time, he stood up abruptly, hugging the girl tightly in his arms. Honey, promise me, okay? The next second, the stiffness in his arms awakened Ethan's memory. He pushed the girl in his arms away fiercely, shouting loudly, You are not my wife, get out, get out. Ethan, don't be like this. The friend stepped forward trying to stop him, but was pushed away by Ethan. He didn't know where he got so much strength, but he understood that they brought him to this kind of place to pull him down. They were definitely not good people. What do you mean by bringing me here to find women for me? Do you think I'm not miserable enough? Yes, I'm decadent, I'm defeated, but what does this have to do with you? Are you afraid that I will rise again and step on you under my feet? Why can't you stand to see others doing well? Ethan's voice resounded around, covering the bar audio. The childhood friend and several friends lowered their eyes and became silent. Perhaps. Ethan was right. If they weren't partying every night, maybe they would be the next business leaders, standing at the peak of life. A self-mocking sneer. Ethan strode out. Boom, lightning tore through the sky, the piercing light illuminating that angry face. Ethan's expression was full of regret, like a life deeply stuck in a swamp of no return, telling of past regrets that could not be redeemed. Facing the heavy rain, Ethan was drenched like a drowned rat. There was only one thought in his heart. He really wanted to go back to the past, back to the time before knowing Bella Banks. If life had, if only. Even if he had to pay with his life, he wouldn't hesitate. After marriage, Julian insisted on taking Lydia and Nina to travel in France. They went to the most romantic Paris, went to the Eiffel Tower, went to Notre Dame de Paris, went to many places. Julian took Lydia to a park. Sitting on the bench, Lydia looked at Julian, smiling apologetically. Thank you for giving me the chance to take care of Nina. She pursed her lips and continued, As for marriage, you know, I am a woman with a past. Julian reached out and took Lydia into his arms, raising his eyebrows. I know, I don't mind, I have a past too. For the first time, he spoke of his past. I used to do business. There was a time when the business failed, my wife left the child and ran away. When I found her, I learned she had been in a plane crash and was no longer alive. Listening to Julian's words, two people who had been hurt and found it hard to let go looked at each other and smiled. Wow, at this time, Nina let out an exclamation. In the park, colorful kites flew all over the sky like a grand banquet. Suddenly, years were quiet, love permeated. Julian stood up abruptly, knelt on one knee in front of Lydia and said smilingly, I want to find a real wife. Can you give me a chance to take care of you for a lifetime? Instantly, Lydia's eyes turned red. Such words were déjà vu. Looking up, holding back the tears in her eyes, Lydia slowly opened her mouth. Aren't we on a contract? I'm afraid if I miss it, I miss a lifetime. Julian took out a diamond ring the size of a pigeon egg and domineeringly put it on Lydia's ring finger. Domestically, foster family. Honey, honey. Ethan was still drunk all day, tears of regret blurring his vision. In a trance, he seemed to see many past events of him and Lydia together. In front of his classroom door, there was always a girl with a ponytail passing by. On his way home from school, there was always a figure wearing a school uniform walking not far from him. When he played around, there was always a small figure who could stop all his naughtiness. He watched her quietly, silently chasing her traces since high school campus, lingering at the door of her classroom, always walking on her way home from school, until Lydia personally agreed to marry him. At that moment, he took out all his savings just to give her a grand wedding. He secretly swore he would cherish the girl in front of him. Unfortunately, the rise of the business world still gave him bad thoughts. He still accidentally lost her. The past was vivid in his mind, like sharp swords piercing deep into Ethan's heart. Silent choking, Ethan covered his face in pain. The sound of secretly sobbing, regretful crying was incessant. At that moment, his heart was dripping blood. Paris, France. Julian took Lydia and Nina to camp on the mountaintop. They tasted French vodka, waiting for the rising sun. Julian kissed Lydia's forehead lightly. I prepared a surprise for you. Lydia looked astonished. What surprise? Coming all the way from the real world to the parallel space. From strangers to becoming a family. Wasn't that enough of a surprise? Julian smiled. Follow me. Holding little Nina, pulling Lydia's arm, he came to a clearing on the mountaintop. Suddenly, points of bright starlight lit up, illuminating the night sky. Nina stared with unbelievable eyes, covering her mouth with her small hand. So beautiful, a pure white wedding dress inlaid with full diamonds slowly fell from midair. Of course, matching the wedding dress were a crown full of diamonds and a pair of crystal shoes. Julian extended his arm gentlemanly. Lydia, you are the Snow White in my heart. Thank you for your kindness. Lydia was excited. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Wow, Daddy, I want a super cute sister. That way I won't stick to Mommy and won't be lonely. We will protect her together, buy her beautiful dresses, and let her become Snow White too, okay? Listening to Nina's cute and innocent words, Lydia was drowned by tears again. She slowly looked up at Julian. This time, Lydia's eyes were full of touching emotion. She nodded gently and finally said the words suppressed in her heart. I do. Dawn. Julian took Lydia and Nina down the mountain. He asked Lydia, Wifey, are you tired? Homesick. Lydia nodded. I'll take you back, okay? Julian said smilingly, domineeringly giving Lydia no chance to refuse. Night. Julian indeed took Lydia and Nina back to the country. He said, they are Chinese, they need to increase domestic GDP. He said, he would spoil Lydia like a princess, never letting her suffer any harm again. He said, he wanted the whole world to see their happy appearance, making everyone envious. The moment the plane landed, an inexplicable sense of belonging rose in Lydia's heart. That feeling was strong, probably only found domestically. Like fallen leaves returning to their roots. It was just that Lydia had a small regret in her heart, wondering when she could return to the real world. Meanwhile, foster family. Wee woo, the sound of the ambulance resounded around. Ethan in the ICU ward seemed to have taken life and death lightly, desperate eyes flowing with 2 lines of tears. In his heart and mind, there was only one thought. That was to see Lydia. Because of long-term alcoholism, coupled with the previous car accident not healing well. Ethan had an intracranial hemorrhage and was sent to the hospital in the middle of the night. Had the servants not discovered it in time, he would probably have lost his life long ago. Refusing to cooperate, stubbornly demanding the doctor contact Lydia, Ethan only felt a sharp pain from his head. The doctors were busy sweating profusely. Various instruments beeped nonstop. The clock on the wall turned round after round until various instruments sounded alarms, the screen showing a straight line. The attending doctor sighed helplessly. "Sorry, we really did our best." On the day of Ethan's funeral, many business people in Seaview City wore black suits to attend the memorial. No one expected that the president of Foster Group, after experiencing an emotional entanglement, would meet such an end. Light rain fell from the sky, the crowd dispersed, only Lydia and Julian didn't leave. They stood there, Julian holding an umbrella, while Lydia looked at the photo on the tombstone. That was a photo of Ethan from a few years ago. At that time, Ethan was handsome and sunny. His eyes contained a smile, full of beautiful expectations for the future. In a trance, many past events with Ethan surfaced in Lydia's mind. At 18, she came to this parallel space and became Ethan's high school classmate. At 20, Ethan held her hand and announced loudly in front of the whole school's teachers and students that he only loved Lydia Lane in this life. At 25, hand in hand, they entered the palace of marriage. There were no imagined tears in the corners of her eyes, as if Ethan was just a passerby in Lydia's life. Like a stranger, a person she never wanted to mention again in this life. A few days later, Lydia received news that Bella Banks committed suicide in prison. Due to Ethan's departure, she wanted to break out to visit, still harboring fantasies of occupying all of Ethan's property. But how could her petty actions escape the eyes of the prison guards? Before she could escape, she was controlled, unwilling for her verdant years to be spent in darkness forever. Bella jumped from the 28th floor of the prison, ending her life. Knowing this, Lydia's dim eyes showed no ripples, as if she had no attachment to this parallel space anymore, as if her heart had died. That night, Nina was very obedient. Lydia finished telling her a story, and she fell asleep quickly. Julian got up, went around to the other side, picked her up horizontally, and walked towards his bedroom. Putting her gently on the bed, the man leaned over, hot breath following closely. That night, they lingered for a long time. Until dawn, Julian held Lydia and refused to let go. Ding! Just when Lydia thought she might never return to the real world and would spend the rest of her life in the parallel space, that mechanical voice sounded again. "Hello, host, the system has been repaired. Congratulations to the host for completing the mission. Does the host wish to detach from the mission world immediately?" Lydia looked at Julian, and the two smiled at each other. "Yes," she whispered a word. The next second, white light flashed and disappeared, everything returned to its place. She was still that pure and beautiful doctoral student. Opening eyes, they returned to the Jenkins villa. Everything was still the same as before, as if everything was just a dream and they had just woken up from the dream. The next morning, Julian held Nina, took Lydia's arm, and went to visit the Jenkins parents. Mama Jenkins looked at Lydia with joy on her face, holding Lydia's hand, looking at her all the time. Looking until she was a bit embarrassed, a shy smile appearing on her face. At night, Nina was taken away by Grandma, leaving only Julian and Lydia in the room. Julian held Lydia, gently stroking her hair, asking softly, "Wifey, when will you give Nina a sister?" Lydia smiled. "In the future." Julian's eyes turned red, holding her tighter. "How many futures do we have?" Lydia turned to look at him. "Many. Wedding anniversary." Julian took Lydia to France again and held a grand wedding for her in the real world. Lydia asked him, "Why?" He kissed Lydia until she was almost breathless, letting go after a long time, smilingly saying, "Because only when you walk towards me wearing a wedding dress can my love find belonging." "Lydia, thank you for marrying me." Lydia's eyes turned red. Actually, words of love don't need to be on the lips every day. Time and facts will prove everything. She reached out, gently stroking his cheek. For the first time, standing on tiptoes, she kissed him lightly. For the first time, whispering in his ear, "Julian Jenkins, I love you." Julian froze slightly, seemingly not hearing clearly, frowning at Lydia. "What did you say?" Lydia reached out to hook Julian's neck, repeating deeply what she just said. "I said, I love you, I didn't hear clearly." Julian tilted his head slightly. Say it again. Lydia smiled sweeter. Deliberately raising the volume, Julian Jenkins, I love you. Lydia Lane loves Julian Jenkins and also loves Nina Jenkins. Lydia Lane will love Julian Jenkins forever in this life, coming out of the Jenkins home. The moment the villa door opened, sunlight sprinkled through the gaps in the leaves, outlining a beautiful picture. Julian stood straight, his handsome face overflowing with a happy smile. Lydia held Nina's small hand, holding Julian's arm, full of happiness and sweetness. Behind them, the Jenkins parents had solemn smiles on their faces. Hundreds of nannies and hundreds of bodyguards followed closely. Solemn, dignified, striding in the carefully pruned garden. The fearless posture seemed to be plating their own legendary chapter in the quiet river of time.